All right, we're going to start our program now. Welcome to everyone. My name is Mavish Ahmed. Welcome to Dissident Histories of Pakistan. Before the program begins, I want to quickly address some translation issues, first in Urdu. Assalamu alaikum. मेरा नाम माविश अहमद है और आप सबको मैं खुशामदीद पेश करना चाहती हूँ इस प्रोग्राम पे जिसका नाम है पाकिस्तान की इनकलाबी तवारीख। अगर आप इस इवेंट को उर्दू में सुनना चाहते हैं तो फिर ज़रूरी है कि आप जूम पर शामिल हो रहे हैं। जूम पर अगर आप अपनी नज़र फेंकेंगे इधर दाएं कोने में तो आपको एक ग्लोब नज़र आएगा जिधर लिखा हुआ है इंटरप्रिटेशन, उसको आप क्लिक करें और वहाँ पे आप इंग्लिश या उर्दू सेलेक्ट कर सकते हैं। आप उर्दू को सेलेक्ट करेंगे तो इंशाल्लाह पूरा प्रोग्राम आप उर्दू में सुन सकेंगे तर्जमे में। अगर आप फेसबुक पे सुन रहे हैं तो फिर ट्रांसलेशन मुमकिन नहीं है, उसका इम्कान नहीं है, लेकिन हम इंशाल्लाह अगले हफ्ते में इस प्रोग्राम को पूरा उर्दू में उर्दू के तर्जमे में पोस्ट करेंगे। इस प्रोग्राम में उर्दू और अंग्रेजी बात कर रहे होंगे हम। मैं ज़्यादातर अंग्रेजी बोलूँगी, लेकिन आप सबको मैं दावत देती हूँ कि आप सवाल उर्दू या अंग्रेजी जिस ज़बान में आप पेश करना चाहते हैं आप ज़रूर करें। इसका हम आपके जो इंस्ट्रक्शंस हैं, कमेंट्स और क्वेश्चंस वो आप चैट में हम दे रहे हैं। उर्दू और अंग्रेजी में आप कर सकते हैं, वहाँ पे वेबसाइट लिंक, ट्विटर हैंडल और हैशटैग भी है। For our English speakers, you must be on Zoom in order to access translation. You click on the globe on the right-hand corner and you can listen to the entire event in English or Urdu. If you are listening on Facebook, unfortunately, there's no access or possibility for translation there, but we do plan to post this entire event in both English and Urdu in the coming week. Instructions for how to ask questions, how to give comments have been shared on all of our chats, and we've also included links to the website, the necessary URL links for the two projects we're launching today, Twitter handle, hashtag, and throughout the event, we'll be sharing more material that we'll be launching today. The event will be in both English and Urdu, but we encourage everybody to please ask questions and give comments in whichever language that you're comfortable in. A very special thanks to our two translators who are translating this event, Mohsin Abdali and Obaid Afzal, behind the scenes, and also to Laura Kemp, Amy Gordon, and Maddie Giles from LSE Sociology, who as always are the backbone of all of the events that we hold out of this department. We have a very packed program, which is almost as ambitious as the two projects that we're launching today. So we will most likely go over time. We apologize in advance. We were planning on finishing at 3:15 UK time, 8:15 Pakistan time, but we'll probably go about 15 minutes over. And we also apologize in advance for any internet issues which may arise. We have panelists joining us from Islamabad, Karachi, Hyderabad, Lahore, Cape Town, and London. And everybody has tried to have backup internet, but one never knows. So forgive us in advance. So let me now begin very quickly, welcoming you again. As I said, my name is Mavish Ahmed. I'm an assistant professor in human rights and politics here at LSE Sociology, and I am joining you from London. Today, we are jointly launching two major transnational collaborations that have been running for about 1 to 2 years and counting, involving at one point over 24 people. In the first part of the program, we're going to be launching a revamped, physically and digitally cataloged South Asian Resource and Research Center. This is an archive and a library that is well known to scholars of the Pakistani and South Asian left. It lives outside in a building outside of Islamabad, and it has up to 47,000 materials, including books, magazines, cassettes, posters, and diaries, produced, many of them by Pakistani progressives, worker unions, left parties, peasant movements, feminist movements, socialist intellectuals, left student groups, and so on. They have meticulously been collected over a period of 40 years by poet, activist, and progressive public intellectual Ahmed Salim, who is joining us today from Islamabad. It is our great honor to have him here. The project has been running for over a year. Today is the culmination of a huge effort by a very large team to physically catalog and make it possible for scholars and activists to search online Ahmed Salim's collection. This effort has been led by Ahmed Salim himself and me, we worked jointly on this, and it's been funded by the Modern Endangered Archives Program out of UCLA and LSE Sociology. It has also included the huge efforts of Chief Librarian Shehzad Abbas and his team of archival assistants. Shehzad Abbas Saab is joining us from Islamabad, who've been working in the library for over a year. It's included the labor of Fahad Desmukh, our data architect, who's gone above and beyond in making it possible for the collection to be searchable online. And it's also included the efforts of Sara Kazmi, a scholar of radical Punjabi literature who's played a crucial supportive role in this project throughout. In the second part of the program, we'll be launching what we call the Revolutionary Papers digital teaching tool. Revolutionary Papers is also another transnational collaboration that, as you will hear soon, has much in common with the South Asian Resource and Research Archive, SARRC. It investigates, in this collaboration, we investigate anti-colonial left-wing periodicals and journals and magazines and other prints as very important sites of critical knowledge production, primarily in the 20th century, but also in the 21st century. This collaboration has been dreamt up with my comrade and colleagues and friends, Hannah Morgenstern. She is a lecturer in post-colonial literature at Cambridge. She's joining us from London. And Connie Benson, a lecturer in history at the University of the Western Cape, who's joining us from South Africa, from Cape Town, and of course myself. While the Revolutionary Papers project is quite extensive and includes, as both Hannah and Connie will tell us about later in this program, other workshops, including a massive international conference in Cape Town next year, today what we're going to be focusing on is launching just one leg of this larger project, something that we're calling teaching tools. The idea with teaching tools is that we want to make it possible for educators and political organizers to teach radical journals in classroom and movement contexts, to teach those journals that were often the marginalized sites where people not allowed to print books, not allowed to write in mainstream venues, wrote critical theory and left an anti-colonial thought. And we want people to mobilize these insights from these magazines, the kind of magazines that Ahmed Salim also has in his collection, to think not just about the radical past, but also about our current intellectual and political challenges. The broader Revolutionary Papers project investigates three things which have also informed what we have tried to focus on within our teaching tools. First, we look at how prints, magazines, etc., constructed alternative networks or infrastructures under conditions of imperial or colonial or post-colonial violence. For example, how despite censorship and repression, dissident magazines constructed alternative networks, and where they could continue to curate and print and distribute critical news and analysis. So for example, today in the first part of the program, when we hear Ahmed Salim speak in a pre-recorded film, he'll be telling us stories about how magazines like SARRC Parcham, which was published by the Communist Party of Pakistan, would avoid government censorship and bans by asking other publications that were still circulating legally to lend them space on their pages. Now you'll hear a shortened cut from Salim Saab about SARRC Parcham and two other left magazines, which as part of the first part of the program where we focus on SARRC, but we do plan to turn those into video teaching tools as well, not just on SARRC Parcham, but on two other magazines, Al-Fatah and Mayar. So yes, first, Revolutionary Papers looks at how prints played a role in constructing alternative networks. The other thing that we're looking at is how these magazines were places where organizers and left-wing intellectuals could create other vocabularies, other words, other concepts and analysis to the political order and power and hegemonies that were reigning in their communities or in their countries, and the way that they link to these insights and analysis to a global revolutionary politics. So in the first of two digital teaching tools that we will be sharing with you today, we'll give an example of this. The first one is on Jabal, which means mountain in Balochi and Sindhi. It was the underground bulletin of the Balochistan People's Liberation Front, or BPLF, an armed group that was facing a counterinsurgency operation by Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto launched just 3 years after the secession of Bangladesh. We're going to hear about how alternative ideas of internationalism were articulated on the pages of Jabal. This idea of internationalism was different from that one that Bhutto was speaking about at the time, and the diplomatic and government routes that were being pursued by the likes of Bhutto or Nasser or Nehru. Jabal spoke about the importance not of forging solidarity between governments, but between political struggles. For instance, between the Baloch and Palestinian struggle, or between the Baloch and Dofari struggle in Oman. The tool will be presented by Mir Muhammad Ali Talpur Saab, who is with us on the call today, a long-standing political organizer and public intellectual on Balochistan, and myself. I'll be drawing on my research on state violence and movements and resistance in Balochistan. And what we will be sharing later in the program is a link to the digital page that we have developed together. The third thing that Revolutionary Papers does, which will also be illustrated in our teaching tool, is look at how periodicals became sites to experiment with new aesthetic practices, new cultural practices. For example, ways that they also articulated new cultural vocabularies to rethink politics in a country. So in the second of our two teaching tools that we're presenting, which is by SARRC Kazmi, we're going to explore how the Mazdoor Kisan Party Circular, the organ of the Maoist Workers and Peasants Party in Pakistan, became a site for MKP members and its associated intellectuals to reshape left-wing cultural politics. So Sara will present a close reading of just one article in the circular, and she's going to show how the circular could become a moment where local languages and ideas could be fused with regional and global revolutionary vocabularies to re-theorize politics and political and the revolutionary subject in 1970s Punjab. Like with Jabal, we're going to share the link today. Before we begin the rest of our program, I want to just end very shortly with sharing some of the ethos and the values that underpin both projects that I think is quite important. Three values underpin it. Both of these projects believe that that the material conditions of left archives in Pakistan and other countries around the global South is incredibly precarious, and that it's time that we start investing in trying to do some kind of conservation effort there. We also recognize that a lot of times the scholarship on left histories in places like Pakistan is directly dependent on the labor and the work of people like Ahmed Salim and other archivists. And too often, I think we have a tendency to sometimes as academics forget how much our work is dependent on them. Sometimes we even have a tendency to share anti-colonial prints in our own research as if we magically came across them. We didn't. Somebody did the work of conserving them. Ahmed Salim has been the source of so much material for many of us who work on the South Asian and Pakistani left. And I think it's we try to center that kind of archival labor in both of our projects. One of the things that happens when we don't recognize the importance of archival labor is that we can end up assuming that a lot of these anti-colonial and left ideas are just easily available to us. But actually they're always dependent on somebody conserving them. The second ethos that underpins it is that we're interested in radical papers from the past, not because they're an intellectual curiosity, but because we are all politically committed to current struggles. We believe that when there's buried histories, when there are certain histories that are not available to us, it limits our ability to imagine what is possible. Our team shares a concern that a renewed interest in left and anti-colonial prints sometimes has a tendency to romanticize them, creating what you could call the Che Guevara problem, where you wear a t-shirt with Che Guevara, but don't know what Che Guevara stood for. So what we're interested in is not just resurrecting radical histories and revisiting them, but also reanimating or thinking about how they relate to what the politics we're doing today. I know that many Pakistani comrades have joined us from Pakistan, many people deeply involved with current political struggles. And we hope not just that you can learn from us, but that we can learn from you. The final ethos that underpins these projects is that we have an ethics of collaboration, of openness, and of generosity. Some of us, or many of us, are part of universities that have massive pressures, neoliberal and economic pressures. There's a tendency to co-opt radical language, co-opt research on radical movements, and turn them away from their transformative programs, instead using things like decolonization or anti-colonialism to institutionally whitewash universities. And there's also pressures on us to become individual academics who don't work together, who hold all of our research very, very close. In our projects, we try to maintain an ethics of comradeship. It is because of this ethics that SARRC exists, Ahmed Salim's archive exists in the first place. You'll be hearing about how Ahmed Salim's archive came into being because of a deeply generous gesture from his side. A student from the US visited him, needed some material, and Ahmed Salim shared his material generously with him. And that's how he came upon the idea of creating an archive. Similarly, there have been people like Dr. Humaira and Kaisar Abbas Sab. Dr. Humaira is a scholar of Urdu literature in her own right. Her and Kaisar Abbas met Ahmed Salim a couple of years ago, and they have donated to him the building in which the library is archived. And that comes from a place of love and generosity and sharing. Similarly, people like Nuzhat Abbas and Pritam Singh, who with myself are the trustees of SARRC in the UK, have also played a key role in making possible this archive. And it has always come from an ethic of collaboration. At Revolutionary Papers, we hope to emulate and do emulate this ethics. And we invite all of our audience today to engage with us, to build your own digital teaching tools, to contribute to the digital teaching tools that we are making, and to engage critically with what we're putting forward. Now I'm going to stop talking and move forward and kick off the first part of our program, where we're going to relaunch the library. We're going to start with Ahmed Salim introducing us to SARRC in a pre-recorded video, which I will be sharing right now.
मेरा वालिदैन का रखा हुआ नाम मोहम्मद सलीम ख्वाजा है, लेकिन मैं अहमद सलीम के नाम से, के कलमी नाम से जाना जाता हूँ। और अहमद सलीम का नाम एज पोइट मैंने इंट्रोड्यूस कराया था। जमाने में मैं पंजाबी मूवमेंट की तरफ चला गया, तो पंजाबी का काम किया काफी सारा, फिर हिस्ट्री की तरफ ध्यान।
I just want to check that everybody can see the video.
No.
Okay, can you see it now? Apologies.
Yes, but it's
sorry, could you, apologies to everybody. There's always, we were expecting a few technical issues. All right, so should I try again? Can you see it? All right. I'm going to start the video again. Yeah.
मेरा वालिदैन का रखा हुआ नाम मोहम्मद सलीम ख्वाजा है, लेकिन मैं अहमद सलीम के नाम से, के कलमी नाम से जाना जाता हूँ। और अहमद सलीम का नाम एज पोइट मैंने इंट्रोड्यूस कराया था। जमाने में मैं पंजाबी मूवमेंट की तरफ चला गया, تو پنجابی کا کام کیا کافی سارا. پھر ہسٹری کی طرف دھیان آیا تو ہسٹری پاکستان کی ہسٹری پولیٹیکل ہسٹری پہ خاصا کام کیا. پھر پولیٹیکل ایکٹیوسٹ بھی رہا ہوں میں. سیاسی جماعت جو لیفٹ ونگ کی ایک پولیٹیکل پارٹی تھی نیشنل عوامی پارٹی, اس میں نے کام کیا. کمیونسٹ پارٹی آف پاکستان کے ساتھ میں وابستہ رہا. اور اسی طرح جرنلزم کی طرف گیا تو جرنلزم کی طرف یوں گیا کہ شو بزنس کی جرنلزم کی میں نے, اور وہ اس لیے کی کہ ضیاء الحق کے دور میں یہ پاسبل ہی نہیں رہا تھا کہ آپ کوئی کام کر سکے سوا یو آر الاؤڈ ٹو انٹرویو آرٹسٹ اینڈ اسٹارز. تو اس میں ٹی وی اور فلم کے لوگوں سے میری ملاقاتیں ہوئی. خاصا میں نے کام کیا. پھر ٹیلی ویژن کے حوالے سے کافی انٹرویوز کیے جو کمپائل کر رہا ہوں میں کتابی شکل میں. لیبر موومنٹ پہ کافی لکھا. میں بنیادی طور پر 3 زبانوں کا رائٹر ہوں. پنجابی میں صرف لٹریچر لکھتا ہوں, پوئٹری اور لٹریچر. اردو میں جو پاپولر ٹاپکس ہیں جیسے ہسٹری ہے, پولیٹیکل ہسٹری ہے. اور انگریزی میں نے ریسرچ کے ٹاپک کو زیادہ لیا ہے. ریسرچ میں ایس ٹی پی آئی کے ساتھ وابستہ ہوں, سسٹینیبل ڈیولپمنٹ پالیسی انسٹیٹیوٹ ادارے کا پورا نام یہ ہے. اور اس میں آج کل ایڈوائزر ایجوکیشن اینڈ انٹرفیتھ ہارمونی ہوں. یہ 90 میں کیا ہوا کہ ایک ہماری پرائم منسٹر تھی بے نظیر بھٹو, ان کی اسمبلیاں توڑ دی گئی. اور اسمبلیاں ٹوٹنے کا مطلب یہ ہوتا ہے کہ پرائم منسٹر آپ فردر نہیں رہے. تو مجھے کسی نے پیپلز پارٹی کے دوست نے کہا کہ یہ آپ بے نظیر بھٹو کی اسمبلیاں جو ٹوٹی ہیں توڑی گئی ہیں, ان پہ ایک کتاب ہمیں لکھ دو. جنگ والے پبلشنگ بھی کرتے تھے بکس کی. تو میں نے جب اس ٹاپک پہ لکھنا شروع کیا تو پتہ چلا کہ میرے پاس تو کچھ ہے ہی نہیں, سورس مٹیریل نہیں ہے. تو میں نے ڈھونڈنا شروع کیا تو کافی اکٹھا ہو گیا. پھر میں نے کتاب لکھی ٹوٹتی بنتی اسمبلیاں, اور بے نظیر بھٹو نے مجھے میسج بھی بھیجا کہ آپ مجھے ملیں. اور لیکن جب وہ کتابیں لکھی گئی 5-6 چھپ بھی گئی تو میں نے سوچا کہ یار یہ تو بڑا اچھا کام ہے. اسی زمانے میں ایک اسٹوڈنٹ آئے تھے امریکہ سے, وہ پاکستان پہ بلوچستان پہ کام کر رہے تھے. تو میں نے کہا کہ میرے پاس بلوچستان پہ کچھ نایاب چیزیں ہیں تو میں دکھاؤں. ان کو دکھایا تو انہوں نے کہا کہ یار یہ آرکائیوز تو بڑا زبردست ہے تمہارا. اچھا, یہ جملہ جو تھا انہی کی زبانی میں نے پہلی بار سنا کہ تمہارا آرکائیوز تو بڑا زبردست ہے. تو میں نے کہا کہ آرکائیوز ڈیولپ کرو. تو 2003 میں اس کو میں نے ایز اے ٹرسٹ رجسٹرڈ کروایا. یہ ایک رجسٹرڈ ٹرسٹ ہے. اس میں نے 47 سے اب تک کے اخبارات, جس میں پاکستان ٹائمز کے تو 47 کے اخبارات بھی میرے پاس ہیں. یعنی جس دن پاکستان بنا اس دن کا اخبار بھی میرے پاس. اسی طرح پھر ڈان کے ارلی ڈیز کے اخبارات ہیں، اسی طرح پھر انگریزی کے اور بہت سارے اخبار ہیں، مارننگ نیوز ہے، اردو کے اخبارات ہیں بے شمار، تو کچھ سندھی کے اخبارات ہیں، تھوڑے سے پنجابی کے بھی ہیں، لیکن زیادہ تر اردو کے اخبارات میں میں فخر سے کہہ سکتا ہوں کہ بھٹو صاحب نے ایک اخبار نکالا تھا مساوات، وہ کافی فائل میرے پاس ہے، یعنی 70 میں نکالا تھا اور 79 تک کا میرے پاس ذخیرہ ہے۔ سب سے پہلی بات تو یہ تھی کہ رجسٹر کرنے کے بعد فنڈز کی ضرورت تھی، فنڈز تھے نہیں، تو میں نے ایک جتنی رائلٹی آتی تھی نا کتابوں کی، میں وہ سارا ادھر لگا دیتا تھا، کتابیں خریدنے پہ، کتابیں رکھنے پہ، سنبھالنے پہ۔ انڈیا وزٹ کرتا تھا تو ڈھیروں وہاں سے کتابیں جمع کر کے لاتا تھا، بنگلہ دیش کا سفر کیا تو وہاں سے کر کے لایا۔ ہمارے آرکائیوز میں 50-60 کے قریب میگزین ہیں، اور ہر میگزین کی کئی سال کی والیومز بھی موجود ہیں، لیکن سر دست میں ان میں سے صرف 3 کا تعارف کرانا چاہتا ہوں۔ پہلے نمبر پر سرخ پرچم ہے، جو انتہائی اہمیت کا حامل ہے اور انتہائی قیمتی ہے۔ یہ سرخ پرچم سٹارٹ ہوا تھا 1972 میں، 72 میں، اور اس کی آرگنائزر تھی کمیونسٹ پارٹی آف پاکستان۔ یہ انڈر گراؤنڈ پبلش ہوتا تھا اور یہ ڈکلیئرڈ غیر قانونی تھا، یعنی یہ لیگل شمارہ نہیں تھا۔ یہ اس کی اگر آپ دیکھیں شکل صورت تو یہ سٹینسل کاٹا جاتا تھا پہلے، اور پھر سٹینسل کی ہیلپ سے اس کو پبلش کیا جاتا تھا، اور یہ ہاتھ کا لکھا ہوتا تھا اور پرنٹ نہیں ہوتا تھا۔ یہ ہائیلی رسکی کام تھا، اور اگر کوئی پکڑا جاتا تھا تو اس پہ غداری اور بغاوت کا مقدمہ چلتا تھا۔ مزے کی بات یہ ہے کہ اس زمانے میں یہ ہوتا تھا کہ کوئی پرچہ پکڑا گیا حکومت کی طرف سے اور اس کو وہ فوری بین کر دیتے تھے، تو پھر یہ تلاش کرتی تھی پارٹی کے لوگ کہ کوئی اور میگزین ایسا لیگل نکلتا ہو، کیونکہ اس وقت پارٹی کا خیال تھا کہ اس کو انڈر گراؤنڈ نہیں ہونا چاہیے بلکہ ایک میگزین کے طور پہ آنا چاہیے۔ الفتح ایک میگزین ہے جو پرو لیفٹ ہوتا تھا۔ الفتح میں ہم نے دیکھا ہے کہ یہ 70 میں نکلا، اور راؤ ارشاد اس کے ایڈیٹر تھے۔ پرو پیپلز پارٹی تھا یہ میگزین، لیکن پیپلز پارٹی کے دور میں اس کو پہلی بار ضبط کیا گیا، اللیگل ڈکلیئر کیا گیا، اور 77 کے بعد اس کو بالکل بند کر دیا گیا، کیونکہ ضیاء الحق کی حکومت نے اس کو اینٹی پاکستان ڈکلیئر کیا، اور الفتح میں جو بھی مواد چھپتا تھا وہ باغیوں کا مواد ہی ہوتا تھا، یعنی ایسے لوگوں کا مواد جو ایک طرح سے ڈکٹیٹرشپ کے خلاف لڑ رہے تھے۔ پھر اس زمانے میں جب یہ بالکل بند ہو گیا تو الفتح تو روک نہیں سکتا تھا، تو الفتح کا لے کر نا لوگو، یہ لوگو यहाँ प्रिंट होता था और लिखा जाता था, नीचे बारीक सा लिखा जाता था, डिक्लेरेशन बहाल होने के बाद जल्द ही शाया होगा। यानी ये सिंबॉलिकली बताया जाता था कि ये इनफैक्ट अलफता ही है, लेकिन चूंकि इसको पाबंदी है, इलीगल डिक्लेयर हो चुका है, तो इसलिए हम इसको निकाल नहीं सकते। एंटी फ्यूडल था, एंटी कैपिटलिस्ट था, सोशलिस्ट इकोनॉमी की बात करता था। यानी ये इसकी जनरल पॉलिटिक्स थी। और इसको कह सकते हैं हम, अगर एक लफ्ज में कहना चाहें तो प्रो लेफ्ट था। तीसरा जो मैगजीन था वो था मेयार, 77 में बैन हुआ। इसके एडिटर थे महमूद शाम और एग्जीक्यूटिव एडिटर अशरफ शाद। एंटी जिया था ये पर्चा। हमारी लेटेस्ट अचीवमेंट 47,000 बुक्स की कैटलॉगिंग है, जो हमने 1 साल की मेहनत से हाल ही में मुकम्मल की है, और जिसकी वजह से ये लाइब्रेरी इस काबिल हो गई है कि इसको हम इंट्रोड्यूस कर सकें। ये ऑनलाइन कैटलॉगिंग है और इसका फायदा ये होगा कि आप अपने डेस्क पे बैठे हुए कंप्यूटर ऑन करके मालूम कर सकते हैं कि आपकी मतलब की कोई किताबें हैं या नहीं है। क्योंकि ये 10 साल से मैं स्ट्रगल कर रहा था कि कैटलॉगिंग हो जाए।
A special thank you to Aksa K and Zuhaib Heather for making the video. We have also uploaded this video on YouTube for those who may have had some connection issues in terms of following it. I'd like to now invite Shahzad Abbas, sitting next to Ahmed Salim Saab and Fahad, to share with us some of the experience in cataloging this archive. Shahzad Saab is an expert in library and information sciences, a PhD student at the University of Sargodha, and he's actually overseeing the cataloging. Shahzad Saab, could you tell us a little bit about the state of the collection when you began?
Thank you very much, madam, for your introduction. Basically, as Salim Saab said in his video, it was his dream to become an online catalog system, and everyone across the world can access the data or the material they have in their archives. We started this project in last year in November 2020, and more than 7 to 8 my team member worked on it, and we achieved this goal within 1 year. And during this cataloging system, we adapt the international standards of cataloging systems. Even you can see the British Library and the Library of Congress, they use the same cataloging standards. You can see in the videos, the spine labels put it on the books, and they are it's an also standardized system across the world to catalog the books and put the spine labels to retrieve the material from the shelves. So it was a wonderful experience to work with Ahmed Salim Saab. The collection they have in their archive is one of the best material they have. And we hope our best to make this the cataloging standard, and everyone across the world can get their material they are looking for. So we hope our team and the work with this Ahmad Salim Sahab and the collection will help the researchers in the field of research they are looking for, and we hope for the best. It's a great achievement, Ahmad Salim Sahab and my team, to put it hard work and make this happen in the practical.
Thank you so much, Zatsab. Could you just also tell us, if scholars or activists or others visit the library, what they can expect when will be their experience for those who might like to come to visit?
As I think the location is also mentioned on the website. It's a little far from the Islamabad. First, they can get the information about the catalog, even they are sitting in their office or somewhere else. So they get the information about the catalog we have. But then they can visit the archive and get basically the material they are looking for. They can get the photocopy, the scan. The facility is also available over there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shahzad Saab. And as everybody can see, Ahmad Salim Saab is also sitting there, and he will also be available to answer questions at the end of the program, but asked for us to play the video so that the talk that he gave was easily available. I'd like to ask Fahad Desmukh. Fahad has helped build the online search catalog. He's also a journalist, a political worker on the left himself, and now works on this kind of data architecture project. So Fahad, if you could share the online catalog with us.
Let me share my screen. So briefly, as Mawi said, my name is Fahad Desmukh. She's described me as a data architect. I'm not very close to that. I'm just a humble web developer. But I was given this amazing opportunity to help sort of revamp the website of SARRC and sort of put all of this amazing work that Shahzad Saab and Ahmed Saab have been doing over the past year and over the past sort of several decades, and bring it all online so that people can access it anywhere in the world. I've shared the screen, and the URL is SARRC, that's with 2 R's, .org.tk. And as you can see, sort of the entire focus of the website is making it easy to access the archive and the catalog. Basically what you're seeing right now is sort of essentially a place where you can just search for anything. And maybe you can just sort of jump right into that and search for some of the things that Ahmed Saab mentioned. For example, he mentioned the Pakistan Times. So we can just type that in here, and that will dig up all of the records which match the Pakistan Times in the catalog of the archive. And over here, you can click on it to expand it, get some more metadata. And we can search by different categories, by title or by type. One of my favorites is to look at box collections. This is stuff which has been cataloged as boxes and materials which are put in boxes in the library. And there's some fascinating stuff in here: Meerut community communist conspiracy case, the Rawalpindi conspiracy case, different stuff titled with the different titles: Freedom History, Foreign Service Dispatch Letters. I don't know exactly what's in all of these things, but now you know the boxes that are available. The search is fairly intuitive, hopefully. There's still some bits that we need to work on, and I'll be looking forward to feedback from people on how to improve it. The website also has the ability to bookmark items briefly for researchers. If you're looking at 3 or 4 items and you want to hold on to them or more, there's a bookmark button on top of each entry in the catalog. And if you do a few of them, you'll see up here in the corner there's an icon which will tell you how many items you have bookmarked. And if you click on that, it'll give you access to that, to those bookmarks. And then you can save these later by copying this URL. So hopefully a nice and simple way for researchers to be able to dig up and bookmark material that they've found. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time, but there's also some, as Mavish has mentioned, the librarians have worked on beginning to digitize some of the content. We haven't put up all the digitized content just yet, but a few of the things we've put up is some of the magazine covers, and these are the ones that Ahmed Salim Saab mentioned in the video. So, for example, this is Mayar, which was founded by Mahmoud Sham. And if you click on that, you'll see the book covers organized by year over here, and you can, the magazine cover, sorry, and then you can browse through by any year. And then right now, if you click on it, you'll get a larger view of the magazine cover. But hopefully at some time, we might get the full digitized versions of the magazines. Other than that, the website has more information about the website, about the archive itself, the people behind it, how to donate, and the Explore page goes into some more detail about the kind of materials that are available on the website. And of course, also, if you're looking to figure out how to get to the library, then the About page has a map with details. So yeah, there's still lots of things to work out, and you'll notice little bugs. You can get in touch with me to fix any of that, but that's it. That's the website in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Fahad. This is basically, this website, all of it is the culmination of just a huge amount of effort. And I think many of those on this call who've gone over to visit Ahmed Salim over the years have heard him express a wish and for this to be cataloged. And we hope that we have been successful in that. As Fahad said, there's still certain kinks that need to be ironed out, and they will happen. And we again invite all of you to give us feedback on this. One final plug before I move on to the second part of our program. So far, this project has been funded, as I mentioned, by the Modern Endangered Archives program at UCLA and LSE Sociology. But really, the SARRC archive has been funded over the last decades by incredibly generous people who believe in the importance of this history. And we hope that all of you can also help us keep the SARRC archive open, accessible, and free, and also placed in Pakistan and remaining in Pakistan. So we've invited and shared a link online for how you can donate, and please do click in to tell us whether or not you can donate to the archive. I'm now going to move, thank you Fahad for sharing that, and everybody's welcome to get in touch with Fahad if you have any further questions. We're now going to move to the second part of our program, which focuses on the Revolutionary Papers Digital Teaching Tool Initiative. I'd like to invite my friend and my colleague and my comrade, Hannah Morgenstern, lecturer of post-colonial literature at Cambridge, and co-founder with myself and Coney Benson, who's also going to be speaking in this program of Revolutionary Papers, to introduce the teaching tools.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Hannah Morgenstern. I'm an associate professor of Middle East and post-colonial literature at the University of Cambridge, and I'm the co-founder and co-director of Revolutionary Papers, and I'll be introducing the digital teaching tools. And I just want to thank everyone for being here, and especially thank you to our collaborators at UWC, LSE, SARRC, and a huge thanks to Mavish Ahmed, who organized everything, every aspect of this event. And I just want to say really grateful and proud to have her on our team. So Revolutionary Papers, as Mavish was discussing earlier, is an international research initiative on anti-colonial and post-colonial periodicals, and it includes over 40 researchers from across the world who look at periodicals from periods of decolonization and also progressive movements in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, and their European and American diasporas. So through seminars, an international conference, a web platform, and publications, we look at the ways that periodicals like newspapers, cultural journals, newsletters played a key role in establishing new counterpublics, new social movements, counter-institutions, political vocabularies, and cultural scenes during colonialism and during periods of decolonization and liberation. In this section, we're launching our pedagogical arm of Revolutionary Papers in collaboration with SARRC, which is the online teaching tools. And the fact that the teaching tools presented here today are based on magazines embedded in the SARRC archive deliberately highlights the possibilities for bringing anti-colonial and left archives and histories into the public sphere. That is exactly the goal of the teaching tools, to cultivate this kind of anti-colonial and left public research and education beyond the academy and also within the academy. The launch of SARRC is particularly noteworthy because the archives of cultural, social, and political periodicals from the global South during periods of left movements and decolonization are, as you know, largely inaccessible to the public. While some periodicals and movement archives are sequestered in gated university libraries where they're difficult to access, others have been censored, many have been lost and also destroyed. At the same time, the perspectives developed and disseminated through local and regional left scenes, which inaugurated these periodicals, have been systemically discarded and suppressed. And I think that in the Western Academy, this suppression has happened alongside the formation of a rather narrow and also largely Anglophone and Francophone canon of post-colonial knowledge and post-colonial thinkers. So what the Revolutionary Papers site aims to do is to offer a gateway into a broader grassroots network of culture and social movement history that cultivated anti and post-colonial thought. This thought was produced by groups of organizers, not just individual intellectuals, but groups of organizers, thinkers, artists across cities, regions, and countries, and also in a kind of transnational networked conversation with each other. And this kind of thought emerges alongside a knowledge of how radical theories and practices interacted and shaped each other across multiple spheres and locations. So by focusing on how to teach periodicals that are left, progressive, anti-colonial, the tools really aim to make this kind of knowledge more accessible to researchers, to teachers, to students, activists, and general interested readers. And at the same time, we want to provide new methods and pedagogies that will encourage instructors and leaders to teach these journals and the cultures and ideas associated with them. We plan to develop the site into a small teaching library, which will go along with our other activities, such as the conference and seminars, which highlight the methods of research to bring out relevant insights about anti-colonial and left periodicals. And we encourage anyone who's researching these kinds of materials to apply it and to build their own teaching tool. Yes, that's my introduction to the teaching tools. And I will now introduce Mir Mohammed Ali Tampour and Mavish Ahmad to present the first teaching tool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. The link to our teaching tools page has been shared, but I'm also going to share the screen here quickly. tools.revolutionarypapers.org. These are the first two that are up: Jabal, the Voice of Balochistan, and Mazdoor Kisan Party Circular. This is the Jabal teaching tool, and what we're going to be, it's the first teaching tool that we're launching. As I mentioned earlier, it's on an underground bulletin of the Balochistan People's Liberation Front distributed in the 1970s. Jabal means mountain in Balochi. A link to the teaching tool has been shared on the chat. It was published in English and Urdu. Primarily English issues have been recovered. It was curated, printed, and distributed primarily out of Karachi, but also other parts of Pakistan, to bring forward an alternative narrative during the 1973 to 77 military operation in northeastern Balochistan at a time of extreme censorship in Pakistan. Mir Mohammed Ali Talpur political organizer of the Baloch struggle and public intellectual in Balochistan, and my co-author, will begin in a pre-recorded lecture by giving the context for why Jabal is such an important publication. And I will just show all of you that right now. Again, the link to the YouTube video is going to be shared in case you have any trouble having this streamed.
Dear friends, the importance of a journal like the Jabal of the People's Liberation Front, BPLF, may be lost upon and be entirely incomprehensible to generations that have the news and views at their fingertips and live in an era when dissemination of news and views is no longer the sole monopoly and prerogative of the states. Today's world is very different from the world of 70s. Then dissemination of news and views was controlled by the state, and it successfully suppressed truth and disseminated lies unchallenged. And it was this situation which needed to be countered forcefully and prompted the birth of Jabal, to present the alternate narrative of the people in contrast to state's lies and untruths. Those who came up with Jabal understood that as long as hunters wrote history, only the hunters would be glorified. Jabal was the narrative of the hunted, and it fulfilled its obligation admirably. The circumstances under which Jabal was produced may not be understood unless a background and the situation and circumstances in then Balochistan are known, and which have been successfully blacked out by the state and may be erased from collective memory if not highlighted. The Dissident Histories of Pakistan by South Asia Resource and Research Center, Archive and Revolutionary Papers, digital teaching tools, is attempting to highlight those circumstances and situations by presenting the alternative narrative. I will here briefly present facts to help understand the BPLF and Jabal. Beginning with forced annexation of Kalat accusations of Khan Kalat Ahmad Yar Khan's attempts to secede. This resulted in insurgency of Nawab Nawroz Khan, Zarakzai, and comrades who too gave up arms on false promises and were rewarded with a military court trial followed by hanging of 7 of his comrades on July 15, 1960. The Baloch resentment also resulted in Shimon Murray-led Parari movement, which was based in northeastern Murray Agency and had paid the state rent there from 1962 to 1969. The 1970 elections under General Yahya led to national armed parties aligned Baloch leaders victory in Balochistan. Sardar Ataullah Mengal was reluctantly allowed to form provincial government on May 1st, 1972. However, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto-led central government created hurdles in its normal governance, and matters came to a head with the dramatized arms find in Iraqi military attachees' residence in Islamabad, leading to Ataullah government dismissal on February 13, 1973. Past injustices and unjust dismissal of Ataullah's government transformed the Baloch people's simmering resentment to open armed conflict when on 18th May 1973, 8 Sibi scouts were killed in an ambush near Tandoori, near Sibi, Balochistan. In response, the government ferried troops and helicopters to Mawand and Murray Agency, and the third and the most important insurgency of Baloch began. This insurgency is historically important because it was the most organized and the longest till then, and without this being the trailblazer in approach and tactics, the subsequent Baloch struggles for rights would have lost its way. The Ferrari movement had to evolve and change as the conflict's needs demanded it, and it became the BPLF, which with its fluid and evolving nature, took up the challenge of defending Baloch rights in a more organized manner. Loosely structured, it may have been, but was a step forward and did represent Baloch aspirations and introduced them to the world as a parallel movement could have never done. BPLF was the natural, qualitatively higher stage of parallel movement and transformed the way the world looked at Baloch struggles of right. The Journal Jabal was the product of a necessity to counter state narrative and to disseminate the political stance of BPLF along with the news and ground facts to the people who otherwise would never learn of because of the severe curbs on Baloch narrative, which included jailing of all Baloch leaders in the infamous Hyderabad conspiracy tribunal, and the use of state and mainstream media to malign and demonize Baloch struggle for rights. This very important obligation was fulfilled by Jabal, an obligation that carried immense risks for those who heroically produced it. Possessing a copy of Jabal was equivalent of carrying a black warrant, and that was because the state saw the counter-narrative as threatening its very edifice and structure. It still does. So spared no effort to suppress truth. If possessing a copy carried a death sentence with it, imagine what fate the authors, publishers, and distributors would have faced if they were found out. The Baloch and all those who have been helped by alternate narrative should remain indebted and extremely thankful to the authors and producers of Jabals as they put their lives on line to uphold Baloch rights and the legacy of truth. I will conclude this with the quote from the last issue of Jabal of April 1978, before it was suspended. For this quote sums up what the stance and standpoint of Baloch leadership and the authors was regarding the Baloch and the BPLF struggle for rights. In Balochistan, quote, in Balochistan today, the armed revolution is fighting the armed counter-revolution. Here, it is no longer the question of one unit or its breakup, or constitutional safeguards for minority nationalities, or greater power to provinces. These are mere platitudes and totally pointless starters for resolving the problem, because the Liberation Front has raised the question to its highest point, that is, armed struggle for the national and democratic rights and the total liberation of people of Balochistan. Little wonder then that Jabal was a journal that gave nightmares to the rulers. Thank you.
Thank you to Talpur Saab for recording this video prior. We would also like to let you know that you can watch the video if you had any trouble streaming it on YouTube, and we can also share a transcript at a later point. Talpur Saab, with your permission, I'd like to add a few more things to what it is, the wonderful background that you already gave. The first thing I'd like to add is Talpur Saab's own expertise in this issue. For those who don't already know, many of us younger and older people on the Pakistani left know about Talpur Saab's history with the Baloch struggle. He joined the Baloch national struggle in 1971, was with the movement throughout the 73 to 77 insurgency, and escaped with them into Afghanistan as a refugee and lived there until 1991. He spent 3 years in the Muddy Hills, 3 years underground in Sindh, and 13 years in Afghanistan, where he was responsible for camps delivering educational and health services to 8,000 Baloch refugees in Zabul and Helmand near Lashkargah. In 2014, he was also a member of the 3,000-kilometer long march to demand the return of disappeared Baloch. And he's the author of dozens of articles on the Baloch movement, which can also be accessible via the Teaching Tool app, which is why I'm so honored that he has co-authored this teaching tool with me. I'd like to share quickly a little bit more about how you could use the teaching tool. And we hope, as I said in the beginning, that both the scholars, activists, organizers, give Talpur Saab and myself feedback on how to improve this teaching tool. As you can see here, what we have said is that the date that it was last updated was the 21st of October, because we both expect to update this with further information and materials. Many of these materials have, of course, been shared by Talpur Saab himself, who has such a rich archive. What you will find, there are different models for how we've developed the teaching tools. This is more of a contextual model, and SARRC Azmi will be showing another kind of model. What it combines is contextual information on Jabal. What you can do is you can click through in any of these things to the geographical, historical contexts, the political movements behind it, the key figures, the kind of print form, which is cycle-style pamphlet, Jabal, the networks that it was trying to build, and the concepts that it was putting forward. I'm sure many of you, of us in the younger generation who use Twitter and social media, have heard from older comrades about the cycle-style print format, and I'll speak about it in a moment. So it combines this contextual information with select excerpts from Jabal throughout. This one is the introductory editorial of the first edition of Jabal, which you will be able to click through to read on your own. One of the, I'm just going to go to quickly show you two of the points, things that you can look at in this teaching tool. One is in the geographical context. You can read about how those who wrote Jabal imagined the northeastern mountains as a privileged site of revolutionary activity, drawing on Baloch mythological ideas of the mountain as a site of refuge, and global revolutionary ideas of the countryside and mountains as, and I quote from Jabal, the basic arena of armed struggle, and also a key site from which, quote again, a struggle for democracy and socialism can spread to the farthest corners of Pakistan. You can read about these mountains here. These are the Tadri Mountains. This picture has been taken by Talpur Saab himself, and this is where the first BPLF camps were set up. You can see pictures that were drawn in the pictures in the pages of Jabal of BPLF fighters watching the Pakistani army coming in, and so on and so forth. The other thing that I will just quickly show you is that you can also click through to learn about the print form, the cyclo-style print form, which was so key in how things and such pamphlets were circulated in the 1970s. And they also created, of course, their own kind of discipline. It required quite a bit of discipline to prepare these, print them, distribute them, and then also make sure that you weren't caught. And the third and final bit that I would like to share with you is it's at the end. There's a section on concepts. What's especially interesting here is that Jabal, on its pages, spoke about being, and I mentioned this earlier as well, were critical of the diplomatic networks of third worldism that were pursued by post-colonial states, by people like Bhutto. And in its pages and in the final excerpt that we have, for example, Jabal writes about the importance of rejecting the Pakistani state's alliance with the Omani government, which allowed the Omani government to recruit young Baloch as mercenaries in the Omani army in order to quash the Dhofar rebellion. Instead of this, Jabal called for forging direct links between radical struggles within Balochistan and those in the Arab world, including the Dhofari rebellion. And this reflected a broader call within the Baloch movement at the time. It was put forward, for example, by Hamid Baloch of the Baloch Student Organization, who was famously executed for attacking an Omani recruitment center in protest. But you will have a chance to click around this yourself and also to ask Talpur Saab or myself any questions you have. What I'd like to do now is move over to SARRC Azmi, who will present to us the second teaching tool. SARRC Azmi is a scholar of radical Punjabi literary formations, a SARRC researcher, and a member of the Revolutionary Papers Collective. SARRC.
Thank you, Mavish and Talpur Saab, for sharing your amazing work on Jabal. And I'm just going to share the screen so I can pull up the circular. All right. Yeah, people can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, what everyone can immediately see is that it looks pretty different from the one that Mavish just shared. And the revolutionary papers, digital teaching tools have been designed as a resource for a variety of contexts. So rather than go through the actual kind of contents, because you can kind of click on what we're kind of referring to as annotated text to kind of read more. I'm not going to obviously take you through that, but I'd rather talk about the concept and the intent that kind of went behind putting this together. So I'm thankful to Ahmed Salim Saab for his guided access to the Mazdoor Kisan Party circular and other relevant documents from his archive, and also to Lizzie and Dan, who designed our the teaching tools, and whose work actually probed me to think more creatively about the ways in which we present and share our work as academics and activists. So for those who are not familiar, let me just share a very brief introduction to the Mazdoor Kisan Party, which translates as the Workers and Peasants Party. So the MKP was a Maoist political party founded in 1968 in what is now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan. And it emerged from a split in the National Awami Party along the lines of the Sino-Soviet rift. However, it would not be fair to simply reduce its program, outlook, and influence simply to the Sino-Soviet conflict, as the party's Maoist focus on the countryside and peasant insurrection also synthesized longer histories of regional resistance. This was true in the case of the party's biggest political success, which was in Hashtnagar, KP, where cadres fought alongside peasants to liberate land. In Punjab, although the party could not organize peasant militancy in the same way and on the same scale, the MKP and its associated intellectuals left an indelible mark on cultural politics in the region, galvanizing older trajectories of Punjabi communism, anti-colonial radicalism, and popular resistance. This teaching tool will focus on the latter and offer a snapshot view of the MKP's cultural politics. Through a close reading of selected writing by someone I consider one of its key intellectuals in Punjab, Malik Agar Khan Sahotra. So, sorry, yeah. Although he is not as well known or as widely celebrated as other MKP leaders like Ishaq Muhammad, Afzal Bangash, and also left-wing Punjabi writers like who were associated with the MKP, such as Najm Hussain Sayyed and Shafqat Tanveer Mirza. Aga Sahotra was a skilled poet and writer, and as this teaching tool demonstrates, a party intellectual who took upon himself the neglected task of theorizing the relationship between caste, class, and revolutionary subjectivity in post-colonial Pakistan. I read his preface titled Haq Musalli, and this is the preface to the manifesto of the Dehati Mazdoor Tanzeem, which was their kind of agrarian workers. It translates as the agrarian workers movement, and it was the kind of rural, the unit within the MKP for organizing landless workers. So I read this preface, which is titled Haq Musalli, as articulating a Dalit Marxism that synthesizes Dravidianism, global Marxism, anti-colonialism with regional vocabularies of resistance to theorize the revolutionary subject in 1970s in Punjab, and centering the kind of historical consciousness of the landless Dalit subject is the kind of reconstructive work that Aga Sahotra does here in this preface and also in his work as in his other writings. So just a little bit of information about Aga Sahotra. He became politically active during the late colonial period in Punjab with the Muslim Sheikh Federation, or the Anjuman Muslim Sheikh, which was a Dalit Muslim organization founded in 1942. In 1968, when the MKP was formed, Sahotra joined as one of its founding members. a seasoned revolutionary who focused his energies on organizing among marginal castes and landless labor in the rural areas of central Punjab, Sahota also played a crucial role in formulating the MKP's cultural program. So he organized and trained the party's first theater troupe, which performed the iconic plays Kuknas and Musalli that are associated with the party's cultural legacy. After the eventual decline of the MKP in Punjab, there were multiple splits in the party during the 1980s, Aga Sahota continued to organize in central Punjab, directing attention towards workers trapped in debt bondage by founding the Bonded Labor Liberation Front. So if you kind of click through, I'll just quickly run you through the tool. There is more background and some material which is kind of relevant. And also just kind of sketching in more information about MKP, other MKP intellectuals as well in the teaching tool. And this is the kind of original text as well. So I'll allow everyone to kind of explore that in more detail on their own, but there's just a couple of things that I'd like to point out about the form itself. So as you have obviously noticed, it looks very different from the more linear form that Mavish shared. And I think where the kind of detail and kind of linear flow of the Jabal teaching tool emphasizes the sense of long and continuous history of the Baloch struggle, which the Pakistani state has consistently denied to the movement. What this teaching tool does is that it forces an intimate engagement and a close reading of a text that exists at the margins of established canons of left-wing progressive cultural and intellectual histories in South Asia. Haq Musalli is an article by a Dalit activist from rural Punjab, published in a political magazine with limited funds that survives only in collections like SARRC, outside of official archives. And it centers the question of caste in Marxist thought, in a milieu dominated by an upper caste, middle to upper class leadership, from whose ranks we now get most of our celebrated revolutionary figures, whose contributions tend to dominate tellings of movements' histories. So by attending here to the very form of the periodical itself, rather than selected memorialized texts by a certain category of leadership, marginal perspectives and alternative imaginaries within movements can also come to the fore. The second crucial thing, as I just wrap up, is, as Mavish already talked you through the last updated section on top, is that unlike a published academic journal, this form can be adapted to different contexts and is also kind of open to collaborations and comparisons and connections with other contexts. And again, I would want to stress, just like Mavish did, that what I'm sharing today on the circular and on Aga Sahota and Dalit Marxism in 1970s Pakistan is very much just a beginning and an unfinished project. And I would like to invite scholars who are also working on the MKP and other related contexts to contribute to the teaching tool. And in fact, I think I've already had a few conversations with some people who are in the call, so that Virinder and Numan and Aditya, who works on Naxalite movements across the border, as well as Waqas Bhatt and Amir Riaz. And I would very much welcome help and kind of contributions from you guys to develop this further. I mean, after all, the research on revolutionary projects should take as collective and collaborative a shape as possible. So this is just a beginning.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your really rich introduction, and we hope everybody can engage with this teaching tool. We'd also like to say, you know, again, in the ethos of collaboration and also accessibility, this event is translated into Urdu very well by Mohsin. Thank you, Mohsin. And these teaching tools will also be translated into Urdu, at least into Urdu. So that is also something that we're lining up. I'd also like to give very special thanks, as Sarah also did, to Lizzie Malcolm and Dan Powers at Rectangle Design, who really pushed us with their creative engagement with the idea of teaching tools to develop these, and also have a lot of other ideas. Now, last but not least, I'd like to ask Connie Benson, another friend, comrade, colleague on revolutionary papers, to conclude our session. She's a lecturer of history at the University of the Western Cape in Cape Town, South Africa, co-founder of Revolutionary Papers, and leading our effort out of South Africa. She's also an archive nerd and organizer in her own right in Cape Town.
Thank you very much, Mavesh, and to everyone. It is a joy to be surrounded by other archival nerds who also organize and study and work across the boundaries of campuses, communities, and do education work in attempts to continue these struggles that are unfortunately not yet history. So I want to just share a few thoughts on how periodicals in Pakistan and South Asia speak to those in South Africa, Southern Africa, and the rest of the continent. In these conversations broaden what we know about the past and the present of the region, and they challenge the way that liberation struggles have been captured by nationalisms, ruling parties, and geographic border calcification, as well as the key milestones of struggle in the histories that we're taught. In South Africa, for example, there's the myth of 1994, and when I listen to the histories being presented today, I can reflect on the ways in which the sort of amnesia of regional networks and the ideas of borders and boundaries that were challenged during anti-colonial rule get rewritten into the histories that then justify the walls that go up and have been going up ever since flag independence. And I think that when Ahmed Salim Saab was referring to the content of rebels in Al-Fatah, this is the kinds of work that challenges the walls, as it were. And I think that collecting against the institutionalization of nationalist narratives in projects, the archiving project like SARRC, for us is very important in terms of thinking about how we collect histories in a way that can continue to engage with them and not just then create these jails, as it were, these kind of carcerated spaces where we collect documents never to be seen again or to be represented in very selective ways that mobilize ongoing oppression. So for me, for example, in this project, I'm looking at the Namibian Review. It was a journal, it was called the Journal of Contemporary Southwest African Affairs, because at the time, I mean, Namibia was not yet Namibia. It was activists organizing in the 1970s. And there was about 31 editions published between 1976 and 1984. So Namibia was a German colony, and then after 1915 was given to South Africa, where South Africa ruled over Namibia as Southwest Africa until 1990. There were 10 Bantustans in South Africa and 10 in Namibia. Not that anyone from Namibia is given any special treatment in South Africa today. And so I do this work with Asher Gamedze and Nashilongwe Mushanja. And we first came across the Namibian Review in conversation with the late Ottilie Abrams, feminist, teacher, radical educator who was part of the editorial team in exile in Sweden. And then the journal was relocated back to what eventually became Namibia, but it was relocated in the 1970s after the passing of the UN Security Council resolution, where South Africa was mandated to withdraw from Southwest Africa. I mean, it still took another 15 more years. And we've been part of a small radical history collective piecing together Auntie Tilly's political life journey and militant through the militant underground reading groups she was part of in Cape Town in the 1960s, to exile in Zambia, to running the education camps in Tanzania, to splits in the nationalist parties, to lobbying work from Sweden, and then to working on projects of food security and education in liberation schools in Namibia until her passing in 2018. And so in reading the Namibian Review then, our goal was to try to piece together as many editions as possible. And what resonates with some of the conversations today is the incredible honor it is to work with these kind of leaders, teachers, activists, archivists, revolutionaries who are still here and can pass on not just the papers and what we can read, what is in the journals, but the stories of how the journals were vehicles in and of themselves. And when we read through the Namibian Review, there's not one single person who was in the I think there was 2 people from the editorial collective who we wanted to speak to, who have already in this past year passed on. And so there's this moment of this intergenerational conversations that we really need. And so to be able to hear today from people who were involved, not just in the struggles, but in the thinking behind collecting those histories and how these publications were used at the time and what they can be used for or what they mean now, it is really inspiring. It enables us to be able to think about creative approaches to history education that builds community across colonial imposed borders in our region in Southern Africa, which I think in some ways has parallels across South Asia as well. And in gathering editions, for example, of the Namibian Review, we're trying to engage in conversations about where do we find these records of the past and what do they mean when we read them in different contexts and when we read them together collectively now. So we invite you to join with us in this conversation, both in person, in verbal conversations, in study groups, and in writing. And we hope that the teaching tools will be tested out and used in various contexts. And we know as educators, anytime you engage materials in one context, it takes on new meaning. And that kind of call and response, reflection and recalibration is really important to us, the kind of lives that these materials take on. And so we invite people who are interested to contribute to a special edition of the Radical History Review, for example. We're having our conference in Cape Town next year, and we hope that these interactions will generate conversations that take off in directions that we can't actually even imagine as of yet. So to see the kinds of work that is already being done with the SARRC archive and what then happens next with the ways in which those histories are used is really exciting. And we hope that the dissident part of these dissident histories remains as we try to challenge the institutionalization of kind of non-collaborationist work. How then do we collaborate to keep the spirit of that resistance alive? I think I'll end there because we want to make sure that we have enough time and I can jump back in the Q&A as well after. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie. And thank you to all of our panelists. I'd like to invite everybody, as I mentioned in the beginning of the event, we've decided to go up to 15 minutes over time. We have magically managed not to blow our schedule with so many speakers. I was convinced that would happen. It's not completely off, so that's good. But I would like to invite anybody who would like to ask any questions to please post them. There are a couple of questions which I will be reading up. But before we go to those, I'm just going to switch over in Urdu because we do have translation, so just pick English. Salim साहब और तालपुर साहब, आपकी वीडियो चली थी, अगर आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं तो मैं आपको इनवाइट करती हूँ.
जी बहुत शुक्रिया. Thank you very much. In fact, I was much interested to comment on your presentations in a way that gave a new life to a dying person. In fact, I have suffered a lot in last 6 months, and I think that I should thankful to all of you who are giving new idea of teaching these revolutionary magazines. I never thought in past that it can be translated in such a way that younger generations of universities in other countries can be interested in that. Anyway, I'm grateful, and I have been, would like to mention few persons who are become source of inspiration for me. If I talked about Pakistan Times, early days of Pakistan Times, and from 1947 to 51, until his arrest, Faiz Ahmed Faiz was the chief editor of this magazine. This periodical daily, English daily, which it is mentioned many times, many ways, that these are the archives. I have been working on collecting editorials of Faiz Ahmed Faiz of these 4 years. And after his release in 55, he also rejoined Pakistan Times and till 58 worked there. I also would like to mention Major Ishaq Muhammad. In fact, Aga Khan Sayotra. In fact, I have been working with them, and I know the worth of these ideas, lofty ideas about them. I have been working with Najam Hussain Syed and Mushtaq Sufi as well. Sibtur Hasan Ragam was a party member of MKP. He always opposed me to entering within MKP circles because he thought that I belong to a bourgeois party, that National Army Party. So I never thought it true, because National Army Party has given a great contribution for the mass people's struggle. It was in fact no doubt there was a difference between Maoist parties and National Army Party, National Awami Party was pro-Moscow group, and Maoist groups were pro-Chinese. But now when I look on these archives, I feel sorry for those quarrels that were happening those days, because we lost a lot of not only materials, but we lost spirits and many other people who are, for example, I would like to refer Nawaz Bhatt Sahab, who was in Karachi. He was my guru, and he first time when offered me vodka, he said, just imagine that Lenin would used to drink it. So don't shy about that. So such was my leaders and teachers. Faiz Ahmad Faiz was one of them. Major Ishaq, I am proud of that. I translated his many booklets in Punjabi language, and these were published because MKP declared Punjabi as its official language. So I had great collection that which you are using. In fact, SARRC Kazmi over romanticized it, the whole issue. I am not talking in romanticism in negative sense, but in positive sense, that without being a romantic, you can't go ahead, you can't struggle, you can't. And who are my heroes? When I asked Faiz Saab that you met Castro, what do you think about him? He said, what a ordinary man can think about a great revolutionary. So these were my teachers. I would also like to mention Ho Chi Minh, who was my great guru, and I used to write to him. I wrote him a letter that how can we help, we Pakistani help in the struggle of Vietnam. He said, you combat with your own army and you will be helping us. Don't allow them to come to Vietnam and fight against us. That is, so these were the inspirations behind I wanted to share with you.
Thank you so
And
much.
sorry.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सलीम साहब, आपने ये सारा शेयर किया.
Thank you.
And I think there may even be some more questions. आपके लिए सवाल भी आएंगे
जी.
लोगों से.
जी.
I'd like to try to make sure that also people's questions are answered. There's a couple of a few logistical questions about how to get involved. Just to answer them at once. They have been answered by my friends and colleagues and comrades. You can sign up to develop a digital teaching tool. You can, those in Pakistan, we invite you please go to Ahmed Salim's archive, meet with him, learn from him, and engage and develop teaching tools on the magazines and journals that he has in his possession. He is a wonderful source of inspiration and knowledge, incredibly important teacher to all of us. So please do feel free to reach out to him. And we're very open to any ideas of other ways of developing the teaching tools. There are a couple of very specific questions for Talpur Saab that I'd also like to pose. Talpur Saab, Kia, the first question is, I'll pose both of them. One is from Kia. He wants to hear more about Jabal. Was Jabal an underground journal? How was it distributed and circulated among people? Was it a weekly or monthly journal? What was its circulation size? What makes Jabal different than present-day publications by Baloch rights campaigners, such as Sangar and Deli Tawar, that was closed by the Pakistani government as well? And the second question is from Zafar Musiani, also for Talpur Saab. How do you see the Jabal of 1970s in comparison to contemporary Baloch struggles and their counter-narratives? तालपुर साहब आप अनम्यूट कर दें अपने।
I didn't quite follow all the questions that you asked. I think Jabal was helpful in putting across the message that the Baloch wanted, what the Baloch desired, and what the Baloch was suffering, across to the people who would never learn about what was happening in Balochistan. There was a complete censorship in Balochistan on from every aspect, and it was not only being a mouthpiece of all the Baloch, but the struggle that was going on then, and I think quite it's a very valuable thing which did take place in the circumstances that the Baloch were facing then, and including not only the Baloch those who were in the mountains, but their friends who were in the cities and were taking the risks and putting out, publishing Jabal. And the things that many people still don't understand, for many people who don't realize, who didn't understand that to be able to that those who are publishing and printing Jabal were always thought to be stigmatized with being either Pakistan centric or Punjab centric. That's not the case, as I expressed in my talk, as the last quote, that there was a certain view that the Jabal had to present to people, and I think that was done quite well. And if not then, at least now, this teaching tool, if people do access it and do learn from it, there's a lot to learn from what we have been talking here today, and all the friends. This is a learning process for me, and learning process for all, and especially for those who would desire to learn from these teaching tools and the experiences of different friends in different places today, and their efforts and their work. This is an opportunity for the younger generation. For I think Abu Salim Sar and me, we are quite well quite old, and but we're still struggling, and we will keep struggling. And it's for others to pick up the mental and keep working and do what has been done still and which needs to be done even more.
Thank you so much, Talpur Sahab. And precisely what Talpur Sahab is saying, I'd like to also just add to him, if there are also current newspapers and magazines across Pakistan that get banned, also out of Balochistan. And as I mentioned earlier, revolutionary papers is not just about old papers from the 20th century, but also contemporary ones. And if anybody wants to develop a teaching tool on contemporary magazines that are banned anywhere in the world, then we also welcome that. It's another way of making them available again. Some of them, like Daily Agar, for example, could be digitized and made available, though I think some of them are in many places. Salim Saab, aapke liye sawal aaye hain, and I would like to put those forward to you. जी, I think बहुत interesting सवाल है, वो ये है कि मैं आपको, आप बेशक, क्योंकि again we do have English to Urdu translation, so I'm going to ask, I speak to Salim Saab in Urdu, so I'm going to ask him the question in Urdu. Salim Saab, आपसे पूछा गया है कि ये सारे magazines अगर banned थे तो आपने किस तरह इकट्ठे किए, और ये प्रसाना ने है, और आपने ये कैसे ट्रांसपोर्ट किए, इनको कैसे बचाया है जब इनके ऊपर उस वक्त किस तरह की पाबंदी थी?
मैं ज़रूर बताना चाहूँगा जी। इनफैक्ट मैं खुद पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविस्ट रहा हूँ। नेशनल अवामी पार्टी अगरचे कहा जाता है आज कि पैटी बुर्जुआ पार्टी थी, लेकिन उसमें कुर्बानियाँ बेपनाह लोगों ने दी और उनमें मैं भी शामिल था। ये अलग बात है कि प्रो मास्को होने की वजह से हमें बहुत सारा तानो तशनी का भी मुजाहरा करना पड़ा, सामना करना पड़ा। लेकिन जहाँ तक इस सवाल का ताल्लुक है कि जब चीज़ें बैन हुई तो इनको कैसे बचाया जाए, तो मैं तो अपने गांव में ले जाता था इन मटेरियल्स को, और वहाँ अम्मा को कहता था कि ये रूबल के नोट्स हैं जो तुम्हारे बाप ने बुखारा से भेजे हैं, इनको संभाल के रखना। रूबल के नोट्स, वो चूँकि मेरे नाना बुखारा में काम करते थे तो वो रूबल भेजा करते थे, तो मेरी मदर को फौरन समझ आ गई कि ये बहुत ही कीमती चीज़ें हैं। उनमें नेशनल अवामी पार्टी के अभी कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो मैंने कंपाइल किए हैं वो कराची से बुक फॉर्म में पब्लिश हो रहे हैं। डॉक्टर जाफर अहमद उनको अरेंज करने के शाया करने की कोशिश में है। आइडिया यही था डॉक्टर जाफर का भी और मेरा भी कि ये कुछ अरसे के बाद ज़ाया हो जाएंगे, और इनको, मुझे याद है नैब के बहुत सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स पेशावर में एक दोस्त के पास मैंने देखे, तो मैंने उनसे रिक्वेस्ट की कि ये आप मेरे हवाले कर दें। तो उनको किसी ने गुमराह कर दिया कि ये लाखों डॉलर में बेचेगा और इसका कारोबार है, तो उसको हवाले मत करें। कुछ अरसे के बाद मैंने सुना कि उनके दोस्त के घर में आग लग गई थी और वो सारे कागज जल गए थे। तो ये मुश्किलात थी। मुश्किलात ये भी थी कि भुट्टो साहब का जब तख्ता उल्टा ज़ियाउल हक ने, तो उसने टेलीविज़न से सारी टेपें, वीडियोस गायब कर ली और कोशिश की कि उनको ज़ाया कर दे। बुकलेट्स जितने थे भुट्टो साहब के ان کو ضائع کرنے کی کوشش کی. میں نے اس کے بارے میں لکھا تو برٹش لائبریری والوں نے مجھ سے باقاعدہ انٹرویو کے لیے بلایا اور کہا کہ ہم اس کی مزید ڈیٹیل جاننا چاہتے ہیں کہ کیسے ضیاء الحق ان کو دفن زمین میں کرتا تھا اور کیسے ضیاء الحق نے ان کو تباہ کیا اور یہ بچ کیسے گئے. ویڈیوز بھٹو کی ویڈیوز آج کل بہت کامن یوز ہو رہی ہیں, لیکن اس کی وجہ یہ ہے کہ آغا ناصر صاحب تھے پی ٹی وی میں, جنہوں نے ویری سمپیتھیٹک ٹو پیپلز پارٹی, جنہوں نے وہاں سے چوری کر کے ان کو محفوظ کیا, گھر میں چھپایا, اور بعد میں جب بے نظیر بھٹو آئیں تو ان کے حوالے کیا. اور یہ میرے ایک دوست ہیں فخر زمان, پنجابی کے رائٹر ہیں, انہوں نے بھی اپنے آرکائیوز پیپلز پارٹی کے, وہ چونکہ نصرت بھٹو کے پولیٹیکل ایڈوائزر تھے تو انہوں نے بھی بہت سارے سنبھال کے رکھے ہوئے تھے. تو اس طرح سے چیزیں مجھے پتہ چلتی گئیں, لیکن سب سے بڑا سورس جو جمع کرنے کا تھا وہ تھا ردی کی دکانیں, پرانی ردی کی دکانیں. ان میں ڈسٹ میں میں ہاتھ ڈالتا تھا. مجھے ڈاکٹر نے کہہ رکھا تھا کہ تمہیں بک کی ڈسٹ الرجی ہے, تم اس سے باز رہو. تو اس نے مجھے ایک ماسک دیا اور کہا کہ یہ جب جایا کرو ان دکانوں پہ تو یہ ماسک پہن لیا کرو. تو بہت ساری چیزیں 1700 کچھ کی 1800 کچھ کی اس زمانے میں مجھے ملی. میرے پاس ایک کتاب ہے جس کو ڈچ ایمبیسڈر وزٹ کر کے میرے گھر آیا اور اس نے وانٹیڈ ٹو واچ دیٹ بک. That the title was Dutch India History. It was published in 1711 from London. اور یہ ڈچ ٹریڈ ود انڈیا سے ریلیٹڈ تھی. تو جب میں نے ان کو فوٹو کاپی کر کے دی تو بہت شکریہ ادا کیا انہوں نے. تو اس طرح سے کچھ چیزیں میں نے محفوظ کی, کچھ چیزیں لکیلی مجھ سے بہت سارے دوست کہا کرتے تھے کہ ان کو خطرہ ہے کہ ان کے گھر ریڈ ہوگا تو وہ جلا دینا چاہتے ہیں. تو میں ان کے ریکویسٹ کرتا تھا کہ یہ آپ میرے حوالے کر دیں اور میں گاؤں لے جا کر ان کو. بڑا سوٹ کیس تھا جس میں میری ماں سب سے قیمتی چیزیں رکھتی تھی اور وہیں میں یہ بھی محفوظ رہے. تو جبل کا یہ ہے کہ میرے دوست تھے پی ایم کٹی صاحب, بزنجو صاحب کے سیکٹری تھے. انہوں نے اپنی آٹو بایوگرافی بھی لکھی ہے اور بزنجو صاحب کی آٹو بایوگرافی کو بھی پبلش کروایا ہے. تو انہوں نے مجھے بہت کچھ حوالے کیا. اور میرے ایک اور دوست تھے بزنجو صاحب کے بڑے صاحبزادے ہیں, خدا انہیں سلامت رکھے, ابھی تک موجود ہیں دنیا میں. اور انہوں نے ایک رسالہ نکالا تھا سنگت, ماہنامہ سنگت, کوئٹہ سے. 72 میں اس کے لیے مجھے بھی بلایا، انوائٹ کیا. رؤف فارسی صاحب تھے ہمارے کراچی کے دوست، وہ ایڈیٹر کے طور پہ جوائن کیا انہوں نے. تو وہ سنگت کا میگزین جو تھا، آج شاہ محمد مری اس کو نکالتے ہیں اسی نام سے، اور ابھی تک وہ چل رہا ہے. تو بلوچستان کی بہت ساری میرے پاس اور میٹیریلز بھی ہیں، جیسے ملتان سے نکلتا تھا بلوچی دنیا، میر چاکر رند نکالتے تھے ان کو، تو اس کے کافی سارے فائل ہیں میرے پاس، 60s کے، 70s کے، 80s کے اور 2000 کے بعد کے نکلتے رہے ہیں. تو یہ بڑا سادہ سا طریقہ تھا چیزوں کو پریزرو کرنا. صرف اس میں تھوڑا سا جان کا خطرہ تھا کہ اگر آپ پکڑے گئے ان سارے میٹیریلز کے ساتھ تو آپ کی بچت نہیں ہوگی، اور اگر آپ کو بیماری نے گھیر لیا تو آپ تب بھی آپ زندہ نہیں رہیں گے. یہاں غالباً بیٹھی ہے ڈاکٹر حمیرہ، مجھے نہیں پتا وہ موجود ہیں کہ نہیں. انہوں نے مجھے مرنے سے بچانے کے لیے میری لائبریری کا ڈور ڈالا، اور ان کے میاں نے یہ گھر بنا کے دیا مجھے، جہاں اب یہ ساری چیزیں ہیں. تو اس میں ہمارے ایک اور دوست بھی ہیں، رانا فواد. وہ اپنی والدہ کی وصیت کے مطابق کوئی یادگار کام کرنا چاہتے تھے، تو انہوں نے مجھے آفر کی کہ میں یہ کر سکتا ہوں کہ آپ کی لائبریری بنوا دوں، اور انہوں نے کافی ہیلپ کی. ہمارے ایک اور دوست ہیں خالد محمود، کراچی میں ہوتے ہیں، وہ فارماسوٹیکل کمپنی کے مالک ہیں، لیکن انہوں نے بھی کافی ہیلپ کی میری. اور ان کی بیگم لالی آتی ہیں، ہمارے وزٹ کرتی ہیں اور مٹیریل لے جاتی ہیں. ابھی وہ سرخ پرچم کے پرچے 4 پرچے لے گئی ہیں. ان کا خیال تھا کہ ان کو یہ تو مجھے آج پتہ چلا کہ ماوش بتا رہی تھیں کہ ان کو تعلیمی ٹیکسٹ کے طور پہ بھی یوز کیا جا سکتا ہے، لیکن وہ انفیکٹ آرٹسٹ ہیں لالی، اور وہ یہ کام کرتی ہیں، ان کو ری پرنٹ کر کے پہنچاتی ہیں. انہوں نے بہت کام کیے ہیں، سبت حسن کے لیٹرز بھی کمپائل کیے ہیں انہوں نے اور جمع کیے ہیں. تو ساری بات میری بہت لمبی ہو گئی، بس یہی سادہ سا طریقہ تھا. رسک نہ لو اور ڈٹ جاؤ چیزوں کو بچانے کے لیے. اور ایون میں نے چوری تک کی انقلابی دوستوں کے گھروں میں، نواز بٹ کے گھر سے میں ساری مقسم کی کتابیں چرا کے لاتا تھا. اور جب میں نے ان کو 2 سال پہلے بتایا کہ یہ جو تمہاری چیزیں غائب ہوتی تھیں یہ چور میں تھا، تو وہ بڑے حیران ہوئے، کہنے لگے چور اپنے منہ سے کبھی نہیں کہتا کہ اس نے چوری کی ہے، یقیناً اس کا مقصد اچھا ہوگا. تو آج بھی جب میں کمپائل کی ہے مارکس اور اینگلز کی تحریریں، 1200 صفحے کی وہ تحریریں छप रही हैं संगे मील पब्लिकेशन से। तो इस तरह से चल रहा है काम।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सलीम साहब, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपने किया। हमने प्रोग्राम को रैप अप करना है, तो मैं आखिरी सवाल कॉमरेड्स जो कोई और है उनको पेश करूंगी। Thank you so much everybody for coming and for being part of our program. I'm going to throw the last set of questions from Qasim Tirmizi to my two comrades, Koni and Khana, who's asking, how is it that teachers can use the resources that have been developed on the teaching tools? If you could, in a short manner, answer that, that would be great, so that we let people go.
Sure, I can pop in very quickly. Just to say that this is an experiment. I mean, many of us are educators in movements and in classrooms, and it's an experiment to try to put forward some of the ways that we use the materials, knowing that everyone's in their own context. And so we've tried to put up some annotations, some maps, some ways that you can zoom in and out. And all of us, this is our research. So we also have other papers and books and other forms of publication that can add to it. But really, we would love to hear how it is used, what parts, what questions you ask, what questions your students ask. And we are hoping that there will be blogs and reviews of this teaching tool and these sorts of archives, the ways that we see people reviewing, books. And so we're hoping that it can be an experiment in pedagogy and politics of where these materials are used and where they land. And so if you have any feedback on trying to use one of the teaching tools in your own context, and what questions are most useful, what other materials you need to supplement it, what other kind of methodologies, we would appreciate that. So thank you for the interest, but we don't have a recipe and we don't have all the answers there. We see these as one tool in a toolbox. And so, yeah, we share that, knowing it won't be able to do everything in every context.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. Yes, it is an experiment. And I think that different tools could probably be used in different ways. So one way that I envision these tools being used is as kind of like mini presentations inside of a larger seminar, lecture, conversation. So like, for example, with Sarah Kazmi's tool, just looking at manifestos or editorials that people write in magazines, and you can look at the specific one and think about its different elements just by clicking on the interpretations and the translations and the kind of different notes that SARRC gives in that for that particular piece of work. But then you can kind of move on and look at other kinds of manifestos and compare and contrast them and think about the different issues that she raises there. Or, I think that like Mavish's tool breaks down like 10 different elements that you can think about when studying a periodical or a newspaper. And I think that's really useful when because often we don't have these frameworks to think about, okay, how do I think about this? How do I break down and enter into this huge archive? So I think what she offers is very many different entrance ways into this particular periodical, whether that be like, what is the geographical context, what's the political history, or even what kind of materials they made the magazine with, or what kind of machines they used, what their circulations were, what their connections were internationally. So I think those are all like entrance ways into the periodical in different ways. And then what we're hoping is that as more people come on and make new tools, there will be more and more different kinds of entrance ways and different kinds of ways of thinking through these amazing archives documents. Yeah, so thank you so much.
I'd like to add to my two very shortly, and then we're going to wrap up, is of course the way that these two tools exist at the moment. You go in, you learn about Jabal, and then you go in and you learn about MKP Circular. but there are connections between the politics of MKP Circular and the politics of Jabal. There's also connections between what's happening inside Jabal and what's happening, for example, inside the Namibian Review, which Kony works on, or Al Jadid or Al Ittihad, which Hannah works on, or a host of other magazines. We have some of our participants here. For example, Leliuddin is working on also in revolutionary papers on Haq Katha and a couple of different Bengali magazines, and there's different kinds of ideas around vernacular socialisms, Islamic socialism, etc., that circulate, which are kind of in conversation. And one of the other things that we'll be thinking about is how different magazines often ended up using similar kinds of concepts or vocabularies across, but at the same time. And we'll be trying to figure out creatively with our web artists, Lizzie and Dan, how to represent that. For example, one thing, Salim Saab mentioned that he was a personal pen pal of Ho Chi Minh, which I was very impressed by. So we also see Ho Chi Minh emerge constantly as a trope, as a concept as well, not just as a person. And in the cover that of MKP Circular that Sara has shared, Ho Chi Minh is right on the front cover, but he also emerges all sorts of other places and represents all sorts of things. So does Patrice Lumumba. So do a host of other people. And we want to try to pull out some of these vocabularies that were shared in these marginal prints and figure out how to talk about them. But we'd love to think about it with all of you. And I now want to hold to my promise and end this event somewhat on time, only 15 minutes over. And thank all of our panelists for their wonderful contributions. And बहुत शुक्रिया सब audience को मैं कहना चाहती हूँ. अगर आप, let me say in English and then Urdu, so our translators can get a break. In English, thank you everybody for coming. We invite you, as I said in the beginning, the ethos of both of these projects is these are open collaborations. These are not projects that have ended. If you have any ideas for how you would get involved, please get in touch. We're very open to working with you. We're also especially open to working with political organizers and activists who are fighting these struggles today. These are your legacies and your histories, and we want to make it useful to you. I have, from my Pakistani comrades in Pakistan, I learn every day, and there's much work. One of the things that Sara and me, I'm sure, among many other people are interested in, are also the feminist histories of the Pakistani left. And the longer conversation we've had, for example, with comrades from Sindh is about what is the history of Mai Bakhtavar and what do those archives look like? And that's a lot of the work that we still have to do. तो आप सबको मैं दावत देना चाहती हूँ कि आप आके हमारे साथ काम करें. रेवोल्यूशन इनकलाबी पर्चे पे भी उसका उर्दू नाम है, और SARRC के आर्काइव में भी सलीम साहब को भी कांटेक्ट करें, हम सबको कांटेक्ट करें. हम आपको दावत देते हैं. जो भी आपके आइडियाज है, खास तौर पे जो कॉमरेड सियासी काम कर रहे हैं पाकिस्तान में, उनको हम दावत देते हैं कि आप हमारे साथ आके काम करें. Thank you so much. And that is the end of the program. Thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you very much.